Yeah, I'm following them. They have like a.
Hey, yeah, no, it was a really cool
What if you?
scene in Ted Lasso, so I'm on board.
So when we start this, it says the meeting is started and says like got it, and then
Yep.
right next to it is leave the meeting. Right.
Mm.
I feel like the second box is usually reserved for okay, right? So what if you just click that? You're out of the meeting right when you.
might
Well,
say
yeah,
you're
because
okay, yeah.
got it and okay are the exact same thing.
Yeah, I think you. There, yeah.
No, I mean by default, okay is usually on the far right. You know what I mean? When you're clicking stuff, it's like okay, and then the other side is usually cancel, right? So, I don't know.
I could try to
I
end
thought it
it.
was funny.
If I end it right now, I might end the meeting. I could try the experiment right now, but it would just be
No, don't worry. I just thought it was funny.
It might be the
You
thing.
could potentially,
But-
like people could just jump right out.
Yeah, I do know. I think they were just saying that Phil Dunster, who plays Jamie Tart, was like, "Oh, we're gonna start filming the next season in January." So I am super excited for season 3. And then we joked about how they're going to pay a lot of money to get the EPL rights, so they're actually going to be able to wear the proper jerseys and everything for season 3. So I'm super excited outside of the Tottenham Hotspurs. So John, you're going to learn some more football soon enough. It's going to be
some more football terminology that I can instantly forget.
What?
Unless they make it a key story element.
If I
for the
asked
main-
you
for the episode.
gaffer, what's a gaffer? Do you know what a gaffer is, John?
I forgot already. I feel like it's a defensive player or something like that.
Manager.
Yeah.
Gaffer. Man, John,
For those who are just like wondering, like you've
What the
hit
F's going on?
You've hit the YouTube link. You're here to see a certain review of a certain movie, and you're like, "What the hell are these guys talking about?" Ted Lasso season 2,
Enjoy-
because that's how we roll.
Watch it.
enjoy to do it. Watch it. It's fun. It's great. Season 2 went on some weird turns, but
Yes.
yeah, it was
As weird as Nora from Queens season 2.
yeah. I liked. I don't care what he said. I liked the weird rando beard episodes, so I think it was great. It was one of my favorite ones. But John, you have something to look forward to that one. Anyways, welcome to the Heroes World Quarantine Podcast. I'm your host, Stu Pei. With me is one of the owners and proprietors of Heroes World, that be John Ho. Say hello.
What's up, Stu and Rob?
And finally, our resident Prince of Mischief, I would say, who sometimes is the 12th Celestial, Mr. Rob Cadet.
What up, John and Stu?
How
My
many-
finger cannons, which is what I think some people referred to me back in high school.
Yeah. Well, what
Oh,
you
dear.
don't know, actually, Rob has toe cannons. That's his celestial power. It's really
Oh, man.
less helpful, really
Yeah.
difficult to charge. That's why
Yeah.
he's
Yeah,
he's
and
not
you can
very-
always hear me coming because clickety clack on the floor. It's like, oh, here comes Gadet, clickety clack, clickety clack.
This is what it's amazing how this celestial or this
Right,
this eternal,
huge.
it doesn't really make sense. His powers are kind of weird.
Yeah, I'm like
So-
X-23 without the cool hand claws.
Oh boy, yeah. So thank you all for joining us as we do our review of the Celestials. It is out in theaters. It was a very interesting movie to watch. We're gonna do a quick non-spoiler thoughts and views, and then we're gonna full spoilers and just have a fun conversation and shoot questions and things back to each other. So, John, without ruining the movie, what did you generally think? Because right now on Rotten Tomatoes, it's a 48% critical review. The fan reaction is about 84, so it is very split. Fans in the know seem to like it, and then the critics did not like it. So, what are your thoughts, John?
Yeah, so I'm still putting together my thoughts. I just feel like I just kind of rolled out of this movie again, but you know,
You
I
did,
always
because
have-
what time did you watch this movie, John?
11 p.m. last night. So I actually gained an hour while watching it. So the movie is technically only an hour and a half for me, I guess.
John,
I don't know. if
It's
you want to use-
transcended.
How
John.
does
It's
space and
transcended.
time work? Holy moly. Give me a blue box and figure it
Yeah,
out.
I looked at my phone and I'm like, yo, it's only 1 a.m. What happened? I'm like, this
John,
is amazing.
John put on his Sonic's sunglasses, and time
right.
and space just changed, Rob. So there you go.
Okay, so yeah, overall, if we're gonna look at that Rotten Tomatoes score, I'm gonna lean a little more towards the audience score. I was actually, when I was watching it, I was like, I don't know if this is any worse than some of the other Marvel big things happening movies. So like, I guess Endgame and Infinity War would be the closer comparisons to it. I feel like it's a little more towards that end. So I don't know if we're going to assign it a number later, but yeah, overall,
We will.
I was happy I saw it. I was
Yep.
this movie did not want me to see it for a second there. So sorry, my daughter's playing. I don't know if we're going to get a copyright strike.
What, did the theater have a strike? Did the camera turn off? Is that why he didn't want, like, last night? It was like...
the normal theater I go to for some reason did not have heat. So they weren't selling tickets to a particular showing that I wanted to go to.
Silver City, Richmond Hill?
Yeah. One of their AVX screen went down or had no heat, so it was a freezing cold. We did see Dune in there, so we had to keep our jackets on. And then I guess it might have gotten worse. So they weren't taking tickets. I don't know if they resolved the problem. So we went to go see it at the Markham VIP, which is right by the store. So it is nice because that theater is brand spanking new still, even though it's probably a couple years old now. But yeah. Overall, happy I went to go see it, even though at the time after seeing those, like, this is why you can't get swayed by those reviews. Even after seeing it drop to like the 50% mark, I started to go, meh. If I don't see it, not a big deal. And I think if I didn't see this in theaters, it would end up being one of those movies that I don't watch, like Doctor Strange or Thor: Dark World, or Ant-Man 2 or something like that. So it definitely could have been relegated to that point. But I'm happy I saw it. Overall, I was pleased with the film. I'm looking forward to delving into why some critics think it's like under 50%.
I think to the critics' review, there's a lot of exposition in this movie. There's a lot like Iron Man 2, where it's world building. Even the beginning.
Yeah, I think it doesn't fit into that typical Marvel mold.
There are a lot of reviewers online that talks about the Marvel method. Like, this is the way the Marvel movie is made, and these are the beats, and these are the things. And inevitably, when you do an ensemble piece, I think critics are looking at a lens where, like, I didn't see the character arc of really any characters because outside of Icarus, presumably, because no one had a chance to really develop and grow. So if you're looking at it from an analytical standpoint, it's just the movie is just not as, I guess, as developed as, for example, as Shang-Chi. But in terms of like what this movie is building up the universe and building up space and all the different ramifications, where Kevin Feige said things will not be the same after this. It's true, and we'll go into further details of how these Eternals and these Celestials differ from the comics, but I can see why they said it's no dissimilar to Zack Snyder's Justice League. Like, you didn't have time to introduce these characters; you throw them all together and then let them go.
Yeah, this was more split. I went with a decent sized group, and it was very split. I was actually expecting more people to be liked it. Yeah, it was like kind of split. Like it'd be funny. We should have brought my brother on because he hated it.
Well, I don't. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll get to Rob, and then I'll share my thoughts too. Rob, what do you think? Are you watching another trailer or something else drop?
No. I was trying to pull up the cast list because I wanted to make sure, because there's a lot of cast in this, and so apologies, I was listening. Yes, listen, this is a vastly different movie than I think we are used to. I thought about this last night. In that Marvel has been kind of telling us what we want. Here, they're what, 20 movies in or so, 20 something movies in. They're like, here, this is how we do things. This is what you want. This is how you like to. We're spoon feeding you our Marvel method, and you're going to like it and you're going to enjoy it. And we've all been like, yes, we like it. Yes, we like it. Yes, we like it. And you have some deviants like Thor 2 Dark World. Although, as I said earlier this week, Marvel's really pushing for us to reevaluate this movie because they keep throwing it into other things, right? Yeah. And so, but it's spoon feeding us. Even Shang-Chi, as much as we enjoyed it, it followed the Marvel method, the cookie cutter method of how they were making movies. This movie, The Eternals, does not follow that same structure. The pacing is different. The structure, the storytelling is different. There are obviously, you can tell there are, some of the, the true blue Marvel MCU ideas are in there, and how they shoot certain things. But for the most part, this is, you've been spoon fed, Cheerios and Cheerios and Cheerios. And now it's like, hey, we're going to throw some Raisin Bran at you. And you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I like my raisins with some, flakes of wheat. So what's happening here, right? It's tasty, but should I be liking it? So all this to say is that I think that this movie should be watched. I think that we need to, More often than not, and we're all guilty of it, when you start to see these critic reviews, you're like, oh, this is not going to be very good. I don't know if I should be liking this. And I think we need to take a chance, and we being those who are maybe watching, listening to this, I think you need to take a chance and see this. The worst you're going to be out is $15 for your ticket, and maybe $10 for, so call it $25-$30, and 2.5 hours of your time. I think you'll be rewarded though, because it is vastly different than everything else that has come before it. There are some weaknesses in this movie. This is not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination. This is not the best Marvel movie by any stretch of the imagination. But I think by looking at that score, you are easily inferring that it's the worst Marvel movie, and it is not. And I think that we have to talk about, and maybe we'll do it later in this episode, we have to talk about some of the themes that are in this that I think is probably causing a lot of this negativity. And I think it's absolute BS. Yeah. So all that to say is I enjoyed this movie. My son, my movie buddy that he's 12 and a half going on 17. He enjoyed this movie as well. I didn't know, halfway through the movie, I'm like, I'm not sure if he's digging it. And he told me afterwards he quite enjoyed it. So it's definitely something that you should be seeing. It's definitely something to be watching, but it's okay to come out of it being like, I don't know, because they're so used to your Cheerios. This is just a different type of cereal for you.
So is your son your documenter? Is he also watching around like you doing Kringo things and him recording as you walk through the theater and getting your thoughts on things?
No.
He's
just like, Dad, I have to go pee. We've been sitting here for 3 hours. I gotta go pee. So yeah.
I really like this movie, and I think it's gonna just bite me because people are like, "Why?" I'll give you some thoughts later on as to why. I talked to Rob briefly. We were chatting. It's like, "What are your thoughts?" I'm like, "I really like this movie." I left the theater, I think maybe because the bar was so low. I'm like, "Oh, it's like a 48." I'm like, "This can't be good." And I walked away going, well, what happened here? But I'm the person that loves the weird space exposition. I liked all this stuff, and I'm also a person who reads and watches comics, and I do remember the Neil Gaiman run and of the Celestials and stuff. So for me piecing stuff together, I'm like, oh, that's and you can imagine that'll be a recommendation that we'll talk about afterwards in terms of what you should check out. But I really like that type of, I liked what they did, and I totally get it. It's just one of those, it was really weird because I walked out with my wife when we talked about it, and we're both like, yeah, it was really good. And then we talked about it and talked more about it than any other movie outside of Shang-Chi, like compared to Wonder Woman, compared to Suicide Squad, compared to Black Widow. Like, I look back at the last 4 movies, and spoiler to say, like, Eternals was better than Black Widow and Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman 84. It's like the only thing it wasn't better than was Shang-Chi. So I was like,
Wonder Woman's not a high bar though.
yeah, but in terms of cinema score, it's very similar, right? But we've talked about before, Wonder Woman has even more problems, and like it has one glaring problem that can't be overlooked in 84, and I'm like, it's really rough. And then this one,
I feel like it's a cascade of problems.
yeah, it's a lot of problems, but like this one, I don't think it's the same problems, but I think we'll talk about momentarily. Like, I don't think we have to look at this lens as monetary, because again, we knew that this movie was going to have issues because of some of the representation and the fact it wasn't going to be in China. So, but
in other Middle Eastern states as well.
Yeah, there's going to be parts of the world that was so. I think in terms of Kevin Feige and Chloe Zhao, they should be happy the fact that people are talking about this movie in this way, and maybe divisive. It's not going to make money. It's low rated, but the themes and things they're doing, it's going really trying to do something different and outside the box. And I applaud them for trying and do something different, because again, to your point, Rob, we're so used to a format of what it should be that when something is different, we're like, whoa, wow, why is this? But Kevin Feige's always kind of laid the groundwork saying we don't want to do the same method like over and over. Like, we can't do it over, like, even they're like, oh, Doctor Strange won't be our typical like, origin story, and they're trying real hard to kind of pull themselves out of it, because again, these type of movies that are the Marvel method makes money but doesn't get awards, and that's what DC excels at. DC does these random elseworld tales and gets nominated for Academy Awards. So in some aspects, DC does it better in that way. But
Mhm.
in terms of money, it's not always the same in terms of shared universe. But we'll go into that highly in detail momentarily. John, out of a score of 1 to 10, what are you giving this movie?
I actually want to say, like, I just finished it, so sometimes the movie needs to sink in a little more. Like, I think my Shang-Chi score would have changed if I rated it right after the movie. So at this moment right now, I want to give it a 7.5.
Rob?
Yeah, I'm going to give it an 8.
I'm going to concur with you. I give it an 8 as well.
Yeah.
And then the 2 extra scenes at the end, both of them were just like when they were not joking around. So like both of those end credit scenes are awesome. I was like, what? And then I just waited. I'm like, whoa, like,
yeah,
seriously.
We'll talk about that later. Yeah.
Definitely. So those who haven't watched it, the 2 end credits were both just like a jolt wake up call. So needless to say, we're going to go into spoilers momentarily, but the performances were good as they could be. The standout for me, at least, I think Angelina Jolie just did classic Angelina Jolie. Like, she was just kicking butt and taking names and just had the smoldery look every single time. And I'm like, it's like I'm back in 2000 all over again. This is classic Angelina Jolie. So yeah, everyone was good, and I can see why people, the critics were outstanding for Kumail Nanjiani, because the moments he were there, he was the only part of funny in this movie. Which, but again, they're trying to balance the gravitas of like the allegories of like gods and angels and all these other things. So I understand why they kind of balanced out. But John, before we get to full spoilers, was there anyone in the cast that really stood out to you?
I actually really like this guy Richard Madden. I'm not familiar. I think he's a Game of Thrones guy, right?
That guy? Oh yeah. The bodyguard.
Again, I didn't watch Game of Thrones, right? So I really liked him as this Icarus character, and he does. I think he chews up the most screen time, I want to say, or a good chunk of the screen time. So I was pretty happy with him, and of course, who played Gilgamesh? Don Lee.
Yeah, Don Lee.
I don't know if it's just because he's also Asian. But I thought he had a really kind of like strong supporting cast kind of performance, and you're right, Angelina Jolie. They did a good job of. I guess it's nice for her to not have a whole movie resting on her shoulders, so they were able to kind of like, okay, we're gonna use you like kind of like in the holster. We're ready to like kind of draw when you need to really shine and perform, but you can tone it back. We're gonna keep you on our hip, right?
She has one of the best lines in the movie where she's having that conversation with Richard Madden, and then you're like, the way she just says it, just nonchalant. It's like, but I've always wanted to. It was like, whoa, like, all right, cool, okay, let's carry on. It was
At any point during the Wonder Woman hype, was her name ever in the running for Wonder Woman?
No, but yeah.
Because if you watch this movie, you can definitely be like, hey, this might have worked.
It would have worked.
It would have worked.
It would have worked in the 90s if that was the case. Rob, anyone stand out to you before we go into full spoilers?
So I'm actually going to take a controversial take on this, maybe controversial to me, and I'm going to say that I think almost every cast member who played the Eternals did a fantastic job. I actually cannot single out one person. I think that Gemma Chan as Cersei, obviously you could say, well, she was the main person out of all of them, but yet each individual Eternal, whether it was Lauren Ridloff as Makari, like the speedster, even Selma Hayek, who you see, it's all flashback for her as Ajak. Everything, like nobody was chewing scenes, right? Nobody was stealing scenes and trying to one up. I actually think that they were all really strong they're very limited in their amount of screen time, each of them. They're placed into a certain role, no pun intended, in a box, and they executed, all of them executed, even the young girl who played Sprite, Leah McHugh. Like, you could, this is an individual who has been on the planet Earth for 7,000 years and hasn't physically progressed past the age of like 13 or 14. Like, that's, conveying, how tough that is. It was phenomenal. So like, I'm going to say like almost every individual and the Eternals themselves were fantastic. if I have to give like, gun to head one person, I'm gonna go Harish Patel, who played Karun, who was the valet for Kingo. He was really funny as well.
Yep.
And yet, and again, this is a guy, I don't know who this individual is. I've never seen him in anything that I can think of. And he was almost weirdly like the heart of the team, even though he's just a mortal. He's a human who's just been the driver for the last 30 years. Rob,
he's the Hawkeye of the Avengers. You need a human there every once in a while because these are all, different things. So we're going to go on to spoilers because I want to say more. Yes, I agree with you. He's Kringo's manager. Okay, so we are going to full spoilers. You've heard our thoughts. We like the movie overall. Go watch it in the theaters if you have the opportunity to. John saw it at night at 11. Clearly, it was slammed. I saw it Friday night. It was jammed. So follow Rob. Maybe see it at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning. So if you're concerned about numbers, go see there. But I think the studio I think the movie, the reports came out, it's only going to make 65-70 million this weekend. So it is what it is. We'll see if it continues on. I think word of mouth may still help it because people did watch it, liked it, but we'll see what happens. All right, John. So we're going full spoilers. So if you have already seen the movie, welcome on board. If you haven't, why are you still here?
Well, come back. Go watch the movie, then come back and listen to this.
Whatever.
Well, let's make pause faces. Okay, ready, guys? Go. Okay.
Sweet. Thanks, Rob. Okay. I want to give a special shout out to David Kay before we go on. He was the voice of the Celestial Arishem, Peterborough's own. He's done all voice acting in all of these TV shows, including Transformers and Spider-Man and X-Men Evolution. And basically, he's just a voice actor from Peterborough that went to Vancouver, and
he's like the main one, the big red guy. They have a statue of him and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's awesome. Anyways, he does all these things, and he doesn't. He's done all bunch of voice acting, and he was great in Arishem. I thought he, added some gravitas to Arishem the Judge. So I thought it was, he had a lot of. It's a thankless task to be a voice actor. So I always love that. But okay, so we're gonna get in the movie, John. Let's get into thoughts because we talked about the movie Wonder Woman. We talked about what do you think, about this movie? How does it rank to those other movies you saw, John? And you can go elaborate more. How does this rank?
So
all those.
So if we're
Suicide
going,
Squad, Wonder Woman.
I guess if we're going this year, I want to put it near the top. It's very similar to Dune in the fact that I was going in kind of expecting not. But just I wasn't expecting much, right? And then I go in and I see it and I do enjoy it. So Suicide Squad is a great popcorn movie. We had a lot of fun with it. This one I really like Rob said, the entire cast of the Eternals. I thought they did an overall good job. So I did really like all these characters, and given the time constraints that they had, I thought it was good that they were able to fit in a decent amount of story for each character. Even Don Lee, who kind of exits early, he gets a pretty decent arc of things to do, and kind of you see a little bit more of his character in there. So and then I don't know how I'm still trying to process everything, but I don't think it's everything all the articles now are the bottom 3 of the Marvel ratings. It's this movie, Thor: Dark World, and what's the other one? 3? The Hulk.
Iron Man 2.
I think it's Incredible Hulk. That they're like, oh, that's the bottom 3. That's where this movie is. It's in the bottom 3. I don't think so. I think I feel like it is in the top 5, or at least the top.
Captain Marvel is worse.
I don't know how many damn movies there are. It's no I was thinking back and I'm Infinity War and Endgame. Sure, they were great cappers. They had some cool scenes and stuff like that, but I barely remember those movies at this point. I feel like I will remember this movie more when the same amount of time has passed. But I could be wrong. Just fresh off seeing it, and I like you said, all the crazy space junk or whatever you want to call it. I thought they did a good job of explaining that. It probably was a bit much for some people. They're like, oh, I didn't want to think this much. But it was a neat twist. One of the guys I went with was like, "Oh, this is very Kirby-esque." Yeah, and it totally is. All the kind of crazy thing in the celestial plane and all the kind of stuff like that. Sure, you could have maybe cut 20 minutes from the movie if you really wanted to tighten it up. But
it fine. Yeah. No,
I will admit that there were some parts where I was like, okay, I get it. Come on. Keep this boat rolling or keep the truck rolling. But yeah.
It was, to your point, John, I so enjoyed the first action sequence where they show up and fight in like bright light. Like usually every time
it was nice to not have everything in pitch black. Yeah.
Every time a DC movie, a Marvel movie, they fight in the dark. I was like, ugh, it's dark. And then just to see the characters, the Eternals, show up and fight the Deviants in like bright light, I'm like, oh, this is nice. Like they're fighting with the sun and all stuff going on. I'm like, this looks really cool. It looks so different than every other Marvel, because usually they fight in like dark alleys, or even all the Justice League movies, they're fighting in like a red clouded universe. So it was nice to see something again different. And again, I think most of the action sequences I could rewatch again without any problems. Whether it was the first scene, the scene when they're at Druid's cult land, and then the last final fight scene where they're all fighting Icarus. But all those scenes were like, wow, this is like looks stunning. So to the point of most people, the CGI was fantastic done. So it was.
I didn't really have I know people are complaining about the CGI during saying it's one of Marvel's weakest, I guess, during the fights. I didn't really see that. Maybe some of the stuff. I think you can see that they kind of did some double work for Angelina Jolie, maybe, but she's older. You can't. And some of the stuff was crazy. Some of it's not even humanly possible.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, that's the only time I really noticed anything. But yeah, definitely those fights, I thought they were pretty creative. Creative use of this. This guy is essentially a Superman character, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get into a Justice League comparison later on. But I thought it was pretty clever the way they used him, and he wasn't able to just easily defeat every situation. So
to jump on that Icarus thing before I go to Rob, I did like rethinking it and watching that movie. I did like how effortless his flying looked. It looked more effortless than Superman. Superman flies and he looks very stiff. Like he's just always flying with his one arm out, and he kind of just shifts left and right.
Yeah.
And the way that Icarus was kind of floating and moving around in the air, I watched it again going, DC, you should take note of how Icarus flies. He's much more
fluid,
but maybe that's because he's been flying for
but he's like an ice skater comparative to Superman was like a swimmer. And if you're using sport analogies, that's really, swimmers are pounding and hitting the water as they're in their racing, whereas skaters, like figure skaters, and you watch those dance they're just so fluid, right? And that's what I was thinking of.
Well, I think Superman also skates, but I think there's a difference in the hockey analogy of good skaters and bad skaters. So to your point. Yeah. I think he's Icarus is a really fast, skater, and Superman just seems to just push really hard across. So, Raw. Oh well, actually, John, you never answered. So, where's this rank in terms of the movies? We talked about all the movies, superhero movies that came out. Where does it rank? The bottom?
Oh yeah,
half of the
bottom. I'll kind of rank it in the point of, do I want to watch it again? So Suicide Squad, it was a great single serving movie. I don't know if I'm ever going to watch it again. Maybe scenes of it. Shang-Chi, I'm itching to watch it. It drops next week, so that's probably the top of my list.
Yep.
So this is definitely maybe what else do we have for superhero options? This
Wonder Woman
Black
84,
Widow definitely. Which one, sir?
Wonder Woman 84 and Black Widow.
Yeah. So if that's my options,
yes,
this is second place. So Shang-Chi, number one, I got to rewatch it. And then this one I will most likely rewatch next. And then those two, after rewatching them, I'll probably be able to determine which one was my favorite. But I think just the old school Kung Fu vibe from Shang-Chi is going to put it on top.
Yep. Rob?
So this was some superhero, fantastic superhero action.
Same question to you, Rob.
Where do I rank it? So I just took a look. There's 26 as of now MCU movies.
No, I'm talking about just this year's superhero movies, not MCU.
Oh, sorry. So
okay. We can get to, and that's my next question. But in terms of the movies that dropped this year,
but for the only real superhero movies we had were Suicide Squad and Shang-Chi.
Well, Wonder Woman 84 was this year.
That was December that was Boxing Day.
Oh,
so technically that's 2020.
Well, I'll open up the last 5 superhero movies that dropped. Where does it rank in the last 5? Because it was, if we go by that, during this pandemic, there was Wonder Woman 84, then there was Suicide Squad,
or Bloodshot rather.
Well, Bloodshot was way before. It was still like, that was March. So December, like that was Wonder Woman. Then it was Suicide Squad. There was Shang-Chi. There was Black Widow. And then there was
you know what, I gotta say, I would probably put this above, probably near the top. You know, if I'm ranking it, I'm gonna go this. I'd probably go, I think I enjoyed Suicide Squad a bit more than Shang-Chi. So I'd go this, Suicide Squad, Shang-Chi, and then at the bottom too, I got it. Black Widow and Wonder Woman 84 really vying for that bottom spot. Like they're the bottom of the popcorn bag that burnt old kernels, and I'm just not really sure. So that's kind of how I would look at things.
Okay, so no,
does Snake Eyes qualify? Should we put Snake Eyes in the mix? Like I feel like
Snake Eye's not a hero.
Snake Eye, that was a toy, that not a comic book. Although it became a comic book. You could also, there's a lot of other things you could throw in there as well. But yeah, I wouldn't see Snake Eyes again either, even to John's parameters. I think Rob and myself were talking about, Rob wants to watch Dune again. I've seen it 3 times. Just by your chart, John, I can't wait to see this the Eternals again. I will watch Shang-Chi again. I watched Wonder Woman 84 once and I never need to see it again. I've watched Suicide Squad once.
Which you can unwatch it.
I'm good. And then Black Widow, I watched it once and I haven't thought about it since. So it's one of those things where, and those movies were disjointed as well and had their own problems. And they only had 2 characters really to juggle, and it was done very poorly.
They effed it up. What about Snyder Cut? Do we throw Snyder Cut in the mix? I feel like we can.
The 4-hour cut. I guess you could throw the 4-hour
because it's after we watched it after Wonder Woman. Technically,
no.
Yeah. So if you want to throw Snyder Cut, I'll throw Snyder Cut.
Let's Sophie's Choice Rob.
Honestly, I would still watch Eternals over the 4-hour Snyder Cut. There's still so many problems with the 4-hour Snyder Cut, and I think if you even gave, and that's the question, Rob, if they added a few, like another hour of Eternals, I think Eternals will still be even better than the Snyder Cut. I think
Snyder hour on Eternals. I don't know if I could have done it.
Yeah,
well, there's a reason Snyder cut into like 3 different acts where they gave you a break.
There is 7 parts or something.
Yeah, it's like parts. You got to stop that.
It's 2. My Blu-rays are 2. It's 2 Blu-rays. It's like old school Laserdisc. We had to flip them over.
Yeah,
you had to change it.
Yeah, you have to change it. It ends after a part. Yeah, and then put the second disc in. It's so dense.
Yeah. It's I just think that there's the humor in. I think, like Rob, you said it very well. Like the humans in this movie just make it more tolerable, and I don't think there's enough humans in the Justice League movie to make me feel like they care about human beings. So, Karan is like the everything he does in this movie is just like a bright spot in it. Even when we can talk about Kit Harington and his role as Dean Whitman, even his beginning where he's like, why weren't you guys doing that? Like, there just needs to be an interjecting of like a human to ask questions for us as the audience.
That's our gateway into the movie.
Yeah. And in that movie of Justice League, they're like, we're going to try real hard for Alfred to be it. But Alfred's not in enough. And Alfred's already too deep into the lore that he's not asking these dumb questions. Alfred already knows the answers because he's, the backup to Batman. So it's Rob. So what's your thing then? How would you rate? Is it Justice League Snyder Cut better than
I really listen. I've not made any bones about it. I really like the Snyder Cut. Like I've seen it a number of times. I really enjoy that movie. So it's not fair because I haven't seen the Eternals aside from the once. If I'm going base, I would probably put Eternals first and then Justice League second above the other ones. So
who's a better speedster?
Well, okay, so it's interesting you asked that.
It was a better representation of speed, because when I watched that fight at the end, I'm like, yo, this girl is doing way better job than Flash did in all of the Justice League movies.
Honestly, I sat there and saying I thought the exact same thing, John. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm so refreshed and so happy they went with a whole different direction instead of just slow-mo, because it's been done to death. Like,
right. The $6 million man did it in the 70s. For God's sakes, you gotta up your game.
To your point, John, I noticed it too, where Makari's speed was just such a nice, different thing, where this is the Bolt running around doing things and the speed.
Yeah, whenever she had to do something, it happened fast, because that character is fast instead of it happening in slow-mo.
Because the whole question of the slow-mo thing is Bryan Singer. He did it once in the Days of Future Past, and that became the norm. We're like, we'll just do everything slow-mo. But again, the question is, how does the music operate? Because if you go in the fast, the music doesn't actually work.
Yeah. It doesn't. Yeah.
I'm not gonna. I don't know. Yeah, I was like,
that's a rabbit hole.
Does that mean he also changed the music to? I'm like, and then everyone else basically has done it because it's the cheaper way. Like even the Flash TV show. How many times I've seen the Flash just slow mo do something, and I'm like, great, thanks, man. So
no, I've always said that I don't like the way that Snyder portrayed the Flash running as if he was like speed skating. Like his body movements drove me absolutely bananas. I hated that. So I much prefer what they did with Makari in showing, listen, you're a speedster. You want to throw in a very one quick scene, no pun intended, of her doing something in slow-mo to see, like, cool. But the rest of it should be they do it in the cartoons, right? Justice League cartoon or this and that. You just see the red blur going back. It's like, zip. And that's what you want to see in the Flash. You don't want to see in slow motion. So I'm all for what they did. And I was wondering this morning, I was thinking about it. And I was like, I wonder if Andy Muschietti has watched this and is like, like, I wonder how his portrayal of the Flash running is going to be and how it's going to differentiate between what Snyder did. Right. So
it's got to be a split between the two, because CGI, all that stuff's already in way the work's already done.
Well, no, but I'm wondering if he's happy with how his portrayal is going to be, because I think we're gonna revisit that in 2023 or 2022 when the Flash comes out. We'll be talking about what does Muschietti's version of the Flash compare to running to Makari. So
it'll be fun. Okay, so we waited long enough. We'll talk about this movie some more. Let's talk about the two end credit scenes. So credit scene 1. Where it was Druid, Makari, and Athena in space, and it was fun because the reverberations come, and the two of the three Eternals were like, something's coming out, and then you see Pip the Troll just stroll on out with his drink. And the moment I heard his voice, I'm like, oh, here we go. Patton Oswalt.
Marvel's golden boy.
Right. Like MODOK himself. I'm like, Patton Oswalt. I'm like, and Billy Crogan from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, here he is, Patton Oswalt, ready to go.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you see Star Fox, Eros himself, walk onto screen. How was that, John, for you when you saw that moment just pop open and you're like, it's Harry Styles? Like, what is going on?
I actually didn't recognize him, but the entire theater went crazy as soon as he appeared, and I'm like, and I went with Pat, and as soon as the character shows up, he's like, oh, that's Pip the whatever. I'm like, okay, I don't care.
Pip the Troll. Pip the Troll.
Pip the Troll. I'm like, I don't care.
I'm tired.
Care. I don't. No, it wasn't that. It's just this character doesn't mean anything to me, unfortunately.
Yep, exactly.
And then he's like,
mean anything to you? Do you not know who Pip the Troll is, John? He's like 270th in line. He's royalty, baby. He's like, imagine if you're so far down the line, it doesn't matter.
No, Pat tried this too. Pat tried to convince me that these characters are a big deal. And I'm like, no,
he's best friends with Adam Warlock as they travel the world doing stuff. It's like Quantum Leap. He's like,
see, we're already in super obscure territory. Adam Warlock, Guardians, those type of guys. They were already like on the fringe. And now we're jumping to Eternals, even further on the fringe. Now we're hitting Pip the Troll and Skyfox. Like, we're out of the ballpark right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then they cut to Harry Styles, and he's Skyfox, and Pat's like, oh, that's Skyfox, and I'm like, Star Fox. I'm like, oh, the guy from the N64 game. But everyone else in the theater, when they saw his face, they all went, whoa! Like everybody in the theater reacted, and I was like, I suspect this guy's a big deal. I've never seen that happen before, but I feel like this wasn't revealed beforehand. This is surprise casting that got sprung on everybody. So good on them for keeping it secret. He looked good. He's a good looking guy, but I like that character. If you look at him in the comics, he's a ridiculously looking, very comic booky character. So I am very surprised.
Thanos, man.
That's brother of Thanos, very into hedonism or whatever the hell you would call it, that type of stuff.
He is the polar opposite, love and hate.
He's like love. Yeah, he's like all about love and all that kind of stuff.
So that's not heathen. That's a different version.
Do you know his powers, John? Because he was Me Too'd. You know that, right?
I don't know.
Okay, but, so John, just
but you'll
curiosity.
see shots. You'll see shots, and he's on the outside, and I made the joke of, you know, whenever they take the shot, it has like Thanos and whoever in it, they crop the photo, and Star Fox is cropped out. So like I was telling him, like, don't try to make this character a big deal, but hey, you know, if you are a Star Fox fan, welcome to the, I guess, the Howard powers, the Duck John? Minority. No,
do you know his power?
I don't know these characters at all.
He is an Eternal who has the ability to basically make you excited and happy and fall in love with him. That's his power. He has the power to make you fall in love, both men and female. And he is basically the Marvel Universe kind of Captain Kirk. He's the Captain Kirk Riker of the universe, where he goes around just hanging out.
To my knowledge, he is the brother of Thanos, and he went the opposite direction of Thanos and just is all about hooking up.
That is, he has no responsibilities, and he's all about making love, not war. So yes, that is the reverse of this character. That's the thing. And he was a one-time Avenger. And he's hung out with a lot of people. And Harry Styles is in terms of the character, he is the new David Bowie. He is fluid in his clothing choices and all the different things he does. He was part of a band, John. Do you know the band?
Yeah, One Direction. I'm from One Direction, at least.
So he is the right choice, because people, even NBA superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo just mentioned that he went to a Harry Styles concert, and it was him and like 50,000 women. Like, he was like, but I don't care. I love his music. So this is
I'm here.
You know, this is the thing. Yeah. Rob, what were your thoughts when you saw this happen, when you saw Star Fox?
So actually, this was spoiled 3 weeks ago during one of the initial the critic the showing, or one of the critics, I think it was not Deadline, Hollywood Reporter or whatever. He spoiled it on Twitter, and it went viral.
Wow, punk asses.
Yeah.
Punk.
And you know, admittedly, I've had 3 weeks to think about this scene, knowing it was coming up, and I
did not know about Pip the Troll, so that was a surprise.
I was like, oh, cool, Patton. And I was like, you know, is this stunt casting? Because I remember seeing Harry Styles in Dunkirk, and I was like, that was, I think, his first movie, and I was like, is this stunt casting, when they announced that he was going to be in it? And I watched Dunkirk, and admittedly, like, I'm a Christopher Nolan fan, and he's pretty hard director, and he only picks people that he believes are worthy to be in his films, maybe snobbery, however you want to call it, but I think he's very meticulous and specific. And I figured if he cast Harry Styles in this movie, there's obviously something that Styles is bringing that, you know, Nolan wanted. But again, I was like, is this Feige doing stunt casting? Because it kind of takes away, admittedly, just to John, what he said, everybody popped in the theater, using a wrestling term, at Harry Styles as opposed to the character. And does that overshadow the character he's playing? I knew of him as a character, the comic book character. I don't really know much about him. I liked the idea, though, that he is an Eternal, essentially, and that he was tasked with hanging out with Thanos to try to change things or whatever. So I thought, that's a cool thing. I don't know if that's comic book lore or not, but that's a cool little entryway, or, you know, to do something. My son was okay with it. He's like, oh, hey, watermelon sugar high. And I'm like, sure, whatever, man. So, you know, let's see how it goes. I'm hoping that the next time we see him, he has more of a substantial role, and that I can then change my mind, as opposed to being stunt casting, that this is actually
I disagree with you. So. It's not stunt casting at all.
But that's my initial right. So I want to see him actually do something, because I was admittedly impressed with him.
He's not proven. He's not proven.
Well, but he did a decent job in Dunkirk. So like, that's like, I was like, okay.
But I think also that his strength is not trying to be a character in Dunkirk. His strength is basically just be as charming and as ambiguous as possible.
Sure.
And
so
he can
let's
do
just
that.
see.
And like, that's what I think a lot of these actors, when you cast them in certain roles, like they just fit the role. And I think Harry Styles is that character that you can see that he would be both attractive, both male and females. And he would have that charm / energy that Star Fox is supposed to have, where it comes to, being able, you could see him being able to just charm up and kind of chat with anyone and have that type of energy. So it is very much a particular skill set. Like, I don't know if you could cast any actor to do it, because I think, he already, people know of him as someone who is both androgynous in terms of, social norms. Him and Billy Porter wear dresses and things all the time. And he's just like, cool, whatever. Like, this is who I am. So I think that it is to that point. And I think Marvel's done a pretty good job of picking the right actor that fits the character arc, because, that's what they do. They don't really pick anyone who, they're not going to bring in Vince Vaughn to do like a very serious role. They just pick everyone that kind of can do the jokes and kind of do the roles, and that's it. Because you look at even Justin Hammer, I think that was the right call. And apparently he'll be back in the new TV show. So with War Machine. So the Armor Wars. Okay, so nonetheless, John, I'm super excited for Star Fox. People are like, I don't know if they're getting Eternals 2. They'll get Eternals 2. It's fine. They'll
I was like, if you look up Star Fox on Google,
Hmm.
you're gonna get that idiot from the N64 game, not this character.
Yeah. You're definitely gonna have to go Star Fox Marvel.
Yeah, we're gonna see it happen. And then I thought it was well done, and the fact that we gotta get these people together, that's cool. So trailer number 2, Ed Scene. I knew the moment the voice came out who it was. Rob had no idea, because I just recently watched. I was rewatching Luke Cage, and Mahershala Ali's in it. So I heard his voice. I'm like, yes, of course, Blade. So that was the voice. Did you know, John, it was Blade?
Oh, is that the voice at the very end?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Definitely didn't. I thought it was Samuel L. Some of the other people in the theater thought it was. I forgot who they thought it was, but nobody thought it was Blade. So that's pretty crazy.
For a fun fact for those at home that didn't know, Blade is actually based in London. He's not in New York, because that's what we're most meant to believe, because Blade is actually kind of British, but it was based in New York, and everyone sees him as a New York based hero, but he is London based, and there has been many adventures of him and Black Knight fighting off vampires together, so there was a synergy between the two. But I thought that when it's funny, because that the whole scene transpired where Kit Harington's like, I can do this. It was kind of like the same thing with Ant-Man, where he's like, I'm the boss. Like, opens up the thing, and just the Latin and all the things around it, and then that blade, which looked amazing when he went to touch it, and everything coming towards him, and it had the same Harry Potter like parcel tongue, like this, like Lord of the Rings, like the whispering thing. That's generic now when it comes to medieval times. So it was, and then Blade speaks about, are you sure you want to do this? So it was super fun, because this movie, through all its faults, did basically confirm King Arthur exists. The Eternals have the Excalibur, and King Arthur had a thing for Athena. So, and they didn't even mention, is this the ebony blade? It's like, no, it's Excalibur.
Yeah.
So
I jokingly was like, it's Venom as a joke, and then it kind of ebony blade is now tied to Venom's mythos because of King in Black and Donny Cates' run and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool. But I feel like they should have maybe done a little something to let us know. Because if we knew that was Blade, we definitely would have been talking about something else at the end of that movie. But I don't know if they could have.
Well, I don't think they had the costume set,
like,
but it was kind of like they didn't want to release anything, because Blade's still a whiles away, and they didn't want to ruin the look or the thing yet. But
I guess now that you know. But I guess if you think about it, But for some reason, I thought it was Samuel, but it didn't sound like him for some reason. So I was like, I don't know what that is. So
Rob? But okay. So, and I want to go back actually and talk about the Eternals movie, because I haven't given thoughts on it. But when it came to this end credit scene, I was a little bit like I thought it was great. I was explaining to my son the Black Knight and everything else like that. And then when you heard that voice, like I messaged, like I went online when I got home and I was like, who was that? I tried to find it and I found an article on comicbook.com and I was like, what the hell?
Chloe Zhao said on Twitter who it was. So
okay,
she actually did it. She confirmed it. Yeah.
So then I was like, oh my God, that was Blade. And if you don't know, then you would have no idea. And obviously the idea that Blade is in that, you're like, oh my God, that makes it more exciting because it's really been quiet on the Blade front. But they could have had him in a silhouette, right? You could have had it, in a black, in the shadows, you see the sword up. I get that you're not going to reveal the costume, but you should have done something to at least give an indication to really make that scene like pop more than it has. Right now, I think people are walking out going, okay, cool. I don't know who that was.
I think the hairstyles thing overwhelms anything you do. So probably it was
I don't know. Well, I would have been way more happier to see like a silhouette or something that would have given
or you maybe could have shown like the like a smile and like fangs or like the like
something. It just would have been something. I mean, think of like how great. Like, okay, if you go back to the original Iron Man, right, in 2008. And if you have Samuel L. Jackson, you saw him and he talks about the Avengers Initiative. But if it was only on voice, you would have been like, okay, I don't know what that is. Like, you wouldn't know, right? So I think that there is something to be said about, yes, less is more, but you could have done that scene and had him in such shadow that you could barely make out the silhouette, but it would have been enough that you would have been like, holy shit, Blade. Because again, it's been so quiet since they announced it back in like 2018 or 19. We've heard nothing about Blade and Mahershala Ali, aside from the fact that, we've hired a writer, we've hired a director, but there's been nothing about it. So it's all been purely conjecture. Is it coming out in 2022? Have they been secretly filming this? Like, there's been nothing. So,
well, I think they're lining up now with that. It's kind of, it'll be, can this movie be by itself? And now they're like, let's do a buddy cop, Blade and Black Knight together in a film. And I'm all about this. If that's the route they're going, and they're like, Blade's been done before, but how can we change this and make it different? Because to John's point, the Ebony Blade also has ties to Dracula. Like there's a weird thing where it takes souls, and the Ebony Blade has been kind of a long thing, because those who don't know at home, the blade was a meteor that landed on the earth that Merlin forged into a sword, who gave to Sir Percival, hey, this is of pure of heart, only can use it. But in actuality, he lied, and it was only for people that had, it's the counter to Excalibur. It's like, no, people that are, and it's blood cursed. So that's why it says death is my reward. It's like, you are also, the sword can cut through any metal, adamantium, vibranium. It gives you healing powers. You're semi-immortal. Like it can do so much. Like it provides you armor, but the problem is the same thing. It's like, you are cursed with this thing. Like it doesn't allow you to go. You can capture souls with it. Right. So it is like a big deal. And the fact that, when Gemma Chan's Cersei was like, you're gonna maybe connect with your uncle. In the comics, the uncle's the bad guy, the bad Black Knight. And when he does connect with them, the Black Knight would fight the Avengers. He gets the sword, he gets a castle. He's like, you know what, I'll be a good guy. So there is a lot of nuance. I don't know if they're going to do a full hero story with like, here's the story of Black Knight and Blade. But maybe that's what they'll do, because frankly, we already know the story of Blade several times. Like that would be a way to differentiate. We talked many times during when we did our Blade recap. How can they do Blade different? And if it's him and a team of like warriors and like basically he's making his dark, JLA dark, and they're fighting like werewolves and vampires and demons. Like that is a way to do it slowly, like be an ensemble cast of like characters. That would be to do it without, because we know Blade. We don't have to re-explain who he is, but he would be the martial arts expert / occultist expert. So he's like the combination of like a badass Constantine who knows how to fight. And this is what Marvel's going to do. It's like we're gonna go in the zone, a horror zone, even more so than we would for Doctor Strange, and really embrace it. So I'm excited to see what that is. John, does that sound exciting to you, to see this type of horror / guys with swords fighting off vampires and demons and werewolves?
Yeah, I'm always down with bringing back the art of sword. Snake Eyes tried to do it, didn't quite work out for them. So Yeah, definitely bring that back. I'm down for anything Blade, especially this guy attached to it, Mahershala Ali or whatever.
Mahershala Ali. Yeah.
Mahershala Ali, sorry, Mr. Ali. But but yeah, I'm kind of rewatching Luke Cage right now, and he's like definitely the best part of the first season. And I got to the part where the thing, I guess we can talk Blade spoilers, where he dies, and I'm like, really? That's how you do him? So that was kind of a shame.
He had other things going on. He probably had to do with the Academy Award movie that he was nominated for.
Yeah. I was just like, I never got to that point in the season. I was like, oh, really? That's what went down. I can see why people didn't like this.
Rob, what are your thoughts? And who would you like to add into this third trio of Blade?
If you're doing
third
sword fighting, I would have said John Ritter from Skin Deep, but that was a different type of sword fight. It's a deep cut. You guys don't remember that movie?
Nope. Right. Sorry, dude.
Well, do John Ritter Skin Deep sword fight, and you'll see if you Google it. Just don't do it at work. Okay. Who would I want to see as a third swords person? I don't really give a shit. I don't care. I don't know. I can't think of somebody else in the MCU that uses swords.
Taskmaster.
I think barely used swords in Black Widow. I couldn't give a crap. So yeah,
well, that wasn't really Taskmaster.
I think your idea, Stu, like the two of them teaming up. I mean, I think you can have both of them if you were to do the kind of the model that they did in this movie in Eternals, where you do flashbacks of origin stories intermixed with modern day adventure, with a modern day issue that they have to deal with. I think you can easily do that for both characters. You can tell their backstory and their history. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that the Black Knight's backstory is much more full than Blade's. I think Blade's it is what it is, whereas a Black Knight's got a deeper history, just in what you just said with Merlin and the idea of King Arthur. So I think, but I do believe that Blade's got his own movie coming out. So I don't know, maybe it's a Blade movie co-starring Black Knight. Maybe that's what it is.
I think it will be to one of our favorite movies, 48 Hours-esque, where Blade is the veteran who's like teaching Dane Whitman how to fight with swords and like being the funny guy. And Dane, I think
they're
he does
really
a good job of
brooding costume.
Yeah, like I think we have to give props to Kit Harington for brooding and just being the guy of like, I don't know what's going on. I think that works really well if you put him in the dynamic of Blade, who's more comical and more like Mahershala Ali probably wants to do a couple more jokes and not be fully Wesley Snipes, but he wants to probably bring some levity to it. So if you do the combination of that, and then you bring in Black Knight, and then the two of them kind of join together and teaching them how to sword fight and all these other things, and talking about all the the vampires and other things going on, because it's not the first time Marvel's been dropping vampire stuff for like a year and a half, whether it was in Loki where Owen Wilson was like, we put vampires and stuff in here, and then even in the Eternals where that really funny part. I'm glad I didn't watch it because there was a trailer of it or featurette where Kumail Nanjiani was like, when Quran first thought I was a vampire, he tried to stake me. So like there's like the funny thing of that, and I'm like, there's Marvel's trying to slowly bring in the idea of vampires, and but I guess Morbius the Living Vampire is also part of this too. So maybe it could be Morbius.
Do you want to see the Prelude movie with Kumail Nanjiani and the valet character? Because he said he's known him for 50 years. And the guy is around 50 years old. So that means they were running around when I don't know if it was a lone wolf and cub situation or something like that. I don't know if he raised him or whatever, but that's maybe a prequel worth exploring.
Well, even that, he did mention that, I met Thor when he was a kid and we used to hang out. And I'm like, what the hell?
He used to follow me around.
So like there's stuff going on here. Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense. But I'm excited to see where they take Blade now, because if we've talked about 100 times, how do you reboot this thing? And if that's the case, it's him and Black Knight, then you don't need to do a typical Marvel reboot and be like, what is Blade? It's like, I'm the Daywalker, carry on. Let's bring this out. So super excited. But let's talk about Kumail Nanjiani's character, because that whole sequence in the plane was one of my favorites in the entire movie. Because I don't know if people in your theater were laughing, because my theater was laughing where he was like, I played my great-great-grandfather and I played my father. That was great. Like all this stuff. He's like,
I was like,
the line of like,
not know that this guy is aging. How did he get away with it? And it makes
he had facial hair, John. He had facial hair. He had a mustache. I was dying.
Yeah, one of the posters, he's just got a big handlebar mustache. It's like, okay. Is the Clark Kent? There should be another picture where he's wearing big, thick rimmed glasses.
And Rob, did you see the poster? I don't know if you passed by, of him wearing a tuxedo, very 007.
Yes, very 007. Yeah, he also had the original Captain America shield hanging up next to his posters as well on the opposite wall. Yeah, the old school shield. So
well, because we already learned in Captain America and Winter Soldier that the museums hold all the fake stuff. Only rich people have the real stuff. So Kringle probably bought the real Captain America shield a while ago, and then the fake ones in the Smithsonian. So it's like, that makes sense. He would have that type of money. Rob, what were your thoughts? Because part of the movie that we didn't probably question was the third act, and coming out on Johnny just being like, guys, I'm out. Like, what are your thoughts? Because people were like, what's going on there? John, Rob, we'll start with you first. What do you think?
Okay, so I just want to say a couple of things here. I liked that this movie lays, like, you think Icarus, the first thing we all think about is, the kid who flew too close to the sun, melted off his wings, or the NES game, the original system Icarus, right? But I like
Captain N.
Right. But I like the fact that they were like, oh yeah, Sprite made up that story thousands of years ago. Like, they laid the foundation for Greek mythology based on these characters throughout really history, cool. Right? I mean, that was like so cool that you have these existing, and near the end when Fastos' son is like, oh, you're Athena, and she's like, drop the A, it's just Athena. But over time, people assumed she was the goddess of war, Athena, right? Like, I loved how they put these characters in literally throughout history and became our fables. These people became the fables of our history and everything else. I thought that was a really cool idea. I disagreed with the fight scenes. I thought that they were, aside from the beginning and the end that took place in daytime, everything was dark. I even turned to my son, I said, why are all the fight scenes with the deviants so dark? Like, I found it a difficult time to watch and kind of make things out at times. It reminded me of Pacific Rim, the first one, when all the fights with the kaiju were all in nighttime and I couldn't make out what the hell was happening.
Oh, really? I didn't. Yeah, did you see an IMAX screen? Or
no, not an IMAX. It was a huge theater, but I was just like, it just felt really dark. But as it went into the third act, like, as you're watching this, it is jumping back and forth in time periods because they had to do service to so many characters. They all had their own mini origin story interspersed throughout different times of history and different focal points throughout history of things that we know have happened or whatever. That when you don't really know what the hell the movie's about. Right? Like, you don't, until you get to that third act, then you realize who the antagonist is. You're like, oh, it's kind of a twofold. And I think that there might have been a problem with that storytelling and how they executed that. I could see how it would be a little bit confusing to people when they're watching it, that all of a sudden there's really been no hints throughout the first 2/3 of what their purpose is. They're really just on a fact-finding mission. We've got to find our friends. And then you get to that third act and you're like, wow, this is a lot bigger of a plot than we really had anticipated. There's a lot of information to chew here with very little amount of time to be able to actually comprehend it. So you get to that point and, Icarus is now, it's a divisive group of people who are believers and followers and people who are realists and understanding. And there's a lot of allegories with today's modern age of political beliefs and structures and whatever you want to go with. But for Kingo to just be like, listen, I agree with the far right. I believe in our God, but I'm not prepared to fight you guys for it. I'm out. I thought it was a very interesting take, but it also then removes him from them. He wasn't even forced into this battle in some way. Like when they all connected to the Celestial, the Unimind, I thought it would have been really, I was, to be very honest with you, expecting him to be somewhere and all of a sudden be raised up into the air and connected, because they were all connected to the rising Atrios or whatever his name was, the Celestial who was being born throughout the dreamer world, right? The dreamer. So I really expected to see that against his will, he helped defeat, and you didn't see that. And it also wasn't clear at the end when they took the remaining Celestials that were kind of together, when they took him into space. I don't remember if he was part of that or not. It was almost as if he wasn't there. So there's a huge question mark on a fairly integral character in this movie that you don't know. Like, it wasn't even like a cliffhanger. It was more of like, he's just gone. You're like, okay, I don't know what's happening with this guy anymore. He's just literally been written out of the story. It was a very weird.
It was almost like he had a scheduling conflict.
It was just a weird exit for that character.
I kind of liked that he made the choice, and then they didn't have to fight it out. He was like, I'm making this choice. This is how I'm handling it. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to whatever. I'm just going to walk away. So it was neat that a character actually just straight up made that choice. But yeah, I did expect to see him pop up at the end and go, I changed my mind, I'm gonna help or whatever. But
yeah, but I think it's again, Rob, to your point, it's kind of indicative of today's society. Like, everyone has a view, we respect people's view, and that's what it is. People are just expecting in these movies that he was gonna do that Han Solo, fly in last moment and shoot guys in the face and be like, like, I've changed my mind. Humans, my best friend's a human. I gotta stop like Icarus. And it was one of those things where he's like, no, I'm standing by my convictions, and that's what it is.
But don't you think that the lack of a confrontation between him and Karun, like, Karun's human, and he's like, I've been your valet for 30 plus years. We've known each other for such a long time. You've told me everything, and yet you want the destruction of my family in this world.
But they believe in reincarnation, right? So then it's like, it doesn't really matter. Like,
but yes, Hindus, yes, you're right. But the problem is that you and I might know that the average theater goer may not understand the religious implications of the different religions. It's that in and of itself was never explained to us. So you have to know that going in, that's maybe what his thought process was. I'm just saying that it just seems, I agree. Like, John said it correctly. The fact he didn't want to fight and just leaves, that's a great story arc, but there was nothing of substance to follow up that character. There was no conflict with the human that he has considered his best friend for life or whatever. There's nothing. It just seemed like he was literally just, maybe there's scenes that are on the cutting room floor. Like, we don't know. Right. So
yeah. Rob, okay. John, do you have any nitpicks about this movie? Because we've gushed about what we liked. Is there anything you didn't like about this movie? Because we gotta be
yeah, it's Cersei can turn rock into any substance. So why didn't she make a bed? Like, come on, you're gonna like get busy on the rocks. Yeah, make a bed.
John, they're androids. they don't care about that. What do they worry about?
They don't have back pain, John. They don't have back pain. Okay, they heal. They can do their business wherever they want without worry of, ow, I've got a kink in my back.
Yeah, they're super strong as well. So like, he can do whatever. It's fine, because clearly you can throw them into the ground at whatever breakneck speeds and you don't die. So
that was your biggest nitpick. Why didn't she make a bed so she can get busy?
Yeah. Make a bed. You can turn rock into anything. You turned it into like butterflies at one point or something like that.
Yeah, but she dissipates. She dissipates things, right? And she changes the structure. I don't think she can make it into something else.
Yeah, I don't think she can change one object to another. But yeah, she couldn't craft a bed. What she could do is make it like rubber.
No, she could have made it into feathers.
But then you just sink down, because feather has no foundation. So like, you just sink into more rocks anyways. Like, again, it doesn't.
Boo, John. Boo,
John. I don't think that makes like sense. But if that's your biggest nitpick, I understand. That's fine. Anything else you want to complain about, John?
No. I'm not complaining. I like the costumes. I will say some of the costumes, like, they were shiny at one point, and then they almost turned to felt at one point, and then
I noticed that.
I don't know if that was part of the story. Like, something happens to it and it does that. But I did kind of notice that, which is kind of weird. And I did find, okay, you know what? Their ship, their big triangle ship.
Yeah.
Was that a cost-cutting measure? You think? Like,
No,
we need
I
some
think
VFX. Let's make it into a big triangle.
Well, I think it's
like, and it just kind of goes like this off screen.
I think it's a lot of the, you know, it's a
Egyptian
like the
lore, if you think
Domo.
about it.
Yeah, it fits that time period of like these
Mhm.
monoliths like Stonehenge and Space Odyssey 2001. John, I don't think you saw
I
that movie.
just thought it was
it's a
funny to
monolith
see this triangle fly in.
Yeah, it's one of those things
and,
where
and then just zip out like it's nothing. I was thinking of the VFX budget. I'm like, my buddy is a VFX guy. I'm like, wouldn't it be sweet to have that on your demo reel? He's like, yeah, I don't know about that.
but like I think it fits the time period because when they arrive in Samaria at that standpoint, it's like they're treated like gods. But it's like, you know, it's just the basics of the ship to not make it seem like they're, you know, I guess interfering too much. Because if it was like Thor, God and Thunder, that ship that shows up, you know, it's also very, that type of ship's also generic. I kind of like the look of the streamlined giant slab monolith that basically settles on the ground.
Leftover kitchen counter.
Well, I would take that in a heartbeat, John. Clearly, it's a very expensive material. Before we jumped, I'm a big nerd on terms of this. We know from previous states that from the comic books that the Celestials, the Eternals, the Deviants, they're different. So the Celestials created Deviants, humans, and the Eternals and put them on a planet to evolve. This goes a different direction. The Eternals are robots, the humans are just regular humans, and the Deviants are like
Dogs.
Not sentient. They're just like just monsters.
Yeah.
John, do you care about the comic book stuff? Like, was this a better move to do it this way? Because again, you know, it also kind of leaves you questions because Rob and I know the Fantastic Four's coming. And one of the big pieces of why Galactus comes to the planet is that he needs to eat the Celestial to balance out the universe. So the planet is all these planets that people, that's one of the reasons why he goes around from Earth X to eat planets is because he's trying to balance out. There's too many Celestials. This is about balance. Thanos was right. Everything's about balance. So let's just I don't know.
This branch of the comic world, like when you read comics and you're a geek or a nerd, doesn't like for you to know everything. That's you know, there are people that do that and that's awesome. Yeah. But for me, I didn't follow this at all. So this was almost like new content for me. I thought they did a good job of tying it all together and it made sense at the end. What was being accomplished. So I think it all fit together. I don't know if people are going to be hurt of whatever the representation of the original source material or whatever, but for me it worked in this movie. It for sure worked for me. I do question why the Deviants all of a sudden had to have a weird face at one point. I thought that was a weird choice.
Evolution.
I almost laughed.
John.
Yeah, is that what but
because
it seems so goofy. John. It got like this big blue face. Like
but
it
remember, John,
funny.
The Celestials have 6 eyes. The Deviants have 4 eyes. The humans have 2 eyes. It is just the chain of things.
It was just funny when all of a sudden he turned like humanoid. He looked kind of humorous design for some reason. I don't know why.
That was Bill Skarsgård, eh? That was Pennywise the clown himself making that voice.
Oh yeah,
well, remember because
now it makes more sense.
For those who don't know, in the comic books, like Athena leaves the Eternals and goes off with this deviant because she's like, well, we shouldn't kill each other, we should be friends, and like she loves that character. So in the comic books, like he is a sentient like creature and they fall in love and then they go off. It's you know, this is a thing that happens. So yeah, I'm curious to see what happens because again, this world, it's like it's one thing usually in the comics where they show the Celestial inside the planet and not breaking out. The fact there's a giant hand in head coming out of the earth now,
and it's just it's sitting there,
and no one was like, no Avenger, Doctor Strange, no one was like, yeah,
why don't you cut a big hole so he can slip out?
Yeah, like it was just like
problem solved.
Well, why make him into marble? Put him into glass and go cling, and like I don't know,
like it was really weird. And then so I was like, okay, and then so then when Thanos did this thing, everything makes sense. But when Galactus shows up, is he still going to eat the Celestial? Like I don't understand.
He doesn't want to break a Galactus tooth on that.
He still wants to absorb the energy.
Like the center of a Tootsie Pop.
Yeah, like
Yeah. How many licks of the Celestial?
Rob, you care
Celestial
about
bonus.
yeah, Rob, you care about this
No.
this mythos? No, you don't.
No, and I'll tell you what, this again, this is one of the things that you see online. People are like, oh, the Eternals is such an obscure property. What is Marvel thinking? Well, Guardians of the Galaxy at the time was obscure for the average moviegoer. I know of the Eternals as a comic property. I couldn't tell you anything about them prior to seeing this movie. I think it was very good that they didn't make it so tied to the comic, to the source material. I think you can get the understanding of what Kirby had created without going so deep that you're really only servicing a very small portion of comic geeks, right? So they made it very easily palatable for anybody to go see this. So I make the changes, recreate it, serve the purposes of the MCU without serving the purposes of the source material per se. I'm all fine with that. It is a very, very obscure comic title from the 70s, I think, or 60s, right? So, I'm happy. Again, for people who are huge comic nerds, and I'm not disparaging, like, Rob Liefeld, he's been going crazy online because he's a big fan of this property of Kirby. He's in his 50s though. And, he read that. So he's like, this is great. It serves purpose for those individuals or for people who are just so in love with old school Kirby. They are disciples of Kirby. They want to consume all of his stuff. So I'm happy for you, but I'm really happy that it didn't get to be so overwhelmingly Kirby that with that, sticking to the source that you're like, it's too convoluted. This is cool, man.
Yeah,
I'm really excited for this.
They said it was already a lot. I think some people are just like probably why the low scores. They were like, "What the hell is this?"
Because
right?
even
they did say
like
the
even the
Eternals will
trailer,
return, right?
the scroll is like in the beginning. You're like, "Holy, what is going on? A scroll?
Well,
like this is."
And
Star
they
Wars?
said the six. What did they call them? They in the beginning before the six, whatever they called them. But I had to turn to my son and be like, "Oh, those are the Infinity Stones."
Yeah.
They just called them something different. I can't remember what it was.
Singularities.
The singularities thing. Thanks. Before the 6 singularities were created, so you already are like you almost have to know that or infer, I guess, that is obviously meaning the Infinity Stones because that's how we refer to them. So, they really skew a certain way, but I'm kind of glad that they did it that way. Like I said to you, Stu, in a private chat, that they were unapologetically entrenched in telling this story the way they wanted to tell it, and I think it's fine, right?
Yeah, because it does make you question Ego from Guardians 2. He's like, I'm celestial, big god. I'm like, wait, are you? Because now it's questioning. You're like, I don't think you were. So maybe like because the Celestials like were taking over. So maybe no surprise, he lied. So we'll find out. So at that, but to your point, Rob, the costumes were on point. I liked the Kirby infused circles and marks on it. John talked about it in podcast past where he's like, oh, these costumes don't look good, like especially with Falcon Winter Soldier. And all these costumes are made in the same place with the same person. But this was the one time where I walked on it, and I know you talked about felt. It looks so different and so unique than everything else. I was happy to say, hey, it doesn't matter what it's made out of. It just looks like it's space and it's different because all the rest of the uniforms and costumes look so generic. And even the DC ones, they're all battle plated. They're all basic plastics that it kind of looks funny at that point. And this was just like, it looked like it had plastic, but it also had CGI and different things. Like it just had such a different view to it that I was just excited to see something different.
Well, I felt like the costumes also changed because there are at times where they had not capes but fabric flowing off them. Like there was at the end of the battle where Druig walks up. Cersei has like a scarf almost hanging out her shoulders where that wasn't there in previous as you saw her. So it was almost as if like there were, I don't know if the costumes were growing organically as things were happening or not, but and even Druig himself was walking out. He looked like he had like a big trench coat at one point. So it was just very interesting that it seemed to be that the costume would change maybe as required or as needed for their battles. So or I'm completely wrong. And I just
No,
wasn't.
I think there was a few changes that happened in this movie, and I'm all for it. It's in terms of costume, I think it just part of it was just cinematography and look of it. This movie is very nicely shot. It looks great. Again,
And Fastos in his costume, I mean, he's a big dude. He's a heavier set dude, and yet in that costume, he didn't look foolish. He didn't look like a fat guy in a little coat type thing, right? To quote Chris Farley, he actually looked imposing and like he could kick some ass in his suit, even though he's still a bigger guy. So it was cool, man. Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap it up, let's talk about the elephant in the room. There were two scenes in particular that led to this movie being banned in several countries. One being the first, a kiss between an LGBT member in a Marvel film, and basically, unlike Star Wars where they cut it, this was like, nope, we're not cutting it. This is the way it is, and that was led to that. To the fact that the whole Chloe Zhao and like China thing, it's not being released there. But frankly, I think even if Chloe Zhao was not directing this movie, China would have still denied it, because this overall theme of this movie is about questioning authority. And China, as you know, has very strict rules. Even if Chloe Zhao wasn't directing this movie, China's board is like, we're not going to allow you to, like, you can't even get a movie with ghosts in the country, because Chinese people like don't want to be scared of ghosts outside of Coco. Every other ghost movie, they're like, no, you're not allowed. You were censored in China. So I think they made a big deal about Chloe Zhao, like, oh, he's not being in China. But at the end of the day, this movie whole theme is about questioning authority of the Celestials. Is RSM the right leader? Do we question, because they're the Celestials, and Kumail Nanjiani and Kareem said it's for the greater good. Like, you disperse this galaxy and you make millions, billions of more. Like, this is the greater good. And again, based on the philosophy in Asia, like especially in China, that's what the whole system's built upon, the greater good, and they don't want people to think otherwise. So I think it's a kind of an overstep to say, well, Chloe Zhao is the reason why it didn't come out. And I'm like, it can be filmed by like Scorsese, and it still probably wouldn't have come out in China, because again, the theme itself, and then the LGBT kiss. So John, do you think though, like, Marvel, and you saw that Angelina Jolie and these actors are like, I believe in this movie, Chloe Zhao. I'm glad that Marvel didn't like step back. I think my conspiracy hat is on, that they knew this was always going to be the problem, and they just went, screw it. This movie may not make money, but we are going to get so many brownie points for the LGBTQ relationship. We know what? This is not going to be watched. Let's throw in a first sex scene, and then let's throw in the whole, like, all the weird stuff, because frankly, this movie's always going to be, probably going to be not a high performer anyway. So let's just throw this one out and see.
If you're hitting for the fences, you hit for the fences. Yeah.
So John, what are your thoughts?
No, I've stated it before. My thoughts on this film industry relying on places like China and stuff to just basically bail them out from making expensive ass movies. So this movie did have a $200 million budget. So I think they were kind of banking on it. So it's not like they were trying to make this choice and make a stand here. But you're right. I think China was would probably figure out whatever reason they want to stop this movie from happening. And there's a whole conspiracy theory on, like, just basically China doesn't want these types of movies to do well anymore for them, and they want to pump their own movies or something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's a big deal, but I think they really need to stop relying on this international box office to dictate what type of movie they made. And I agree with, like you mentioned, Angelina Jolie. She's one of the ones that you mostly see that came out and said, I'm glad that they took this stance. It's banned in these countries. Too bad you don't want it, then we're not going to change it. So I think it's really good on them for not changing whatever scene was required to be edited out. I don't know if they wanted the whole scene edited out.
It was just the kiss,
edited out,
yeah,
or portions of it. But you know what? You saw. Did they also ask to have the two leads, the Icarus and Circe's kiss, also edited out? There's a whole debate that can happen. If you wanted every kiss to be edited out, okay, maybe you might. I don't even know why that would be a thing. You know what I mean? So I think it's good on them to stick to whatever this film was supposed to be, instead of trying to chase this whatever international box office. So, there's a whole thing we get into. But yeah.
So listen, this is 2021 and
The year of our Lord.
And I think that had this movie been made in the 90s, all of the Eternals cast would have been Caucasian. You may have had one African-American character in there, but that's it. They would have all been Caucasian, whether it was the 80s and 90s, or even maybe even the 2000s, right? You had Skeet Ulrich would have been Icarus. I think we have to recognize that this is a very diverse cast from different sets of backgrounds. Obviously, Kumail Nanjiani, the Asian representation. You have the African American representation. You even have Lauren Ridolph is Miss Deaf America from 2000. Like, you had so many different people of different cultures and ethnicities and
The
backgrounds.
most diverse cast of all time.
Right. Represented in this movie. It, of course, you're going to have individuals representing the LGBTQS plus community as well. I can't speak to the issues with China. I don't agree with it, but that's fine. I don't agree with what's happening in the Middle East with certain Middle Eastern countries outlawing this movie as well. I can only speak to the uproar that we're seeing in North America, in that if you're banging a drum and getting upset because of two men kissing on in a movie, in a Marvel movie, like, grow the fuck up. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we are 2021. We have to. This is ridiculous. I don't have patience for this type of bigotry, ridiculousness. I'm happy with the way that the cast was filled out with the representation. I think everybody needs to be able to see themselves portrayed, or people from their ilk or their tribe or whatever portrayed on the screen, regardless of who they are. We talked about how great some of these actors were in these roles. We talked actually about the minority characters more than we've talked about the Caucasian characters in this movie. I don't care. My son doesn't care. He's 12 and a half years old. He doesn't care about the two guys, because, like, I think if we're
New generation, yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And so if a 12 and a half year old doesn't go, then why the fuck are you in your 20s or 30s or 40s making a big deal out of this online? And why are you hate bombing this review because you don't like it? You have a choice. You can either, enjoy the movie for what it is, or don't see it because you have some weird beliefs that I can't appreciate or understand. Whatever. But I'm very happy that Marvel said piss off to the haters. I think it sucks that this movie has been hate bombed and hate reviewed because of people's personal prejudices.
Yep.
But I'm glad that Marvel, Kevin Feige, Disney stuck to their guns and said, no, this is the story we're telling with the people that we are telling the story, and they're portraying characters that we want them to portray. I think it's great, regardless, and so I'm very happy that they didn't make concessions of editing or removing certain elements of the story to serve the haters, the echo chamber. I'm glad. And I agree with John. I don't remember a time pre-2005 where people really cared about the international box office. It was always kind of like an afterthought, being like, oh, okay, well, they've made some money overseas and this and that. Studios have cowtailed to what's happening in Asia because they rely on that money, to the point, though, that they're editing things out of movies to be accepted by that market. And I think that's wrong. I think you make the movie you make, and you have to stand behind your art. So fuck the haters. Pardon my French.
I think that is going to be, I think that's one of the legacies of this film. It's that you could say that Disney is many things, but Disney went to the fences and say, we're going to do this. And I think there is a group of people, especially, as you said before, there are some deaf actors and kids out there like, I can be a superhero. There will be people of looking at this movie going, oh, the first South Asian superhero, Kumail Nanjiani. Then you could look at the LGBT Faustos, LGBTQ. Like, there are lots of things in this film that you can look at going, hey, this is different and unique, and I want to see more. And if you're building the seeds and let it grow, then I think this will be, it may not be the $1 billion movie that Disney's looking for, but you better believe like they're going for it. And to John's point, I totally forgot about Venom 2 existing, and Venom 2.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
I just what, like it was like, oh what?
Oh yeah.
Like
that's right.
That's how bad we're like. Because I'm like when John's talking about China, like what did Venom do better than anyone else? It makes money in China.
Right.
But that was Venom 1. I don't know if Venom 2
Right.
made that much money in China either, because it's one of those things where it's, you know, like it's kind of a weird thing. But that's how bad Venom 2 was, where we did a review of it just recently and it just totally escaped my memory.
I think it was
That was last week.
We all totally just like forgot about it. That's how
when
bad,
you were talking about superhero movies to rank that we literally
just
skipped over.
totally
Venom
forgot
2.
about. But like I am gonna
It
think
did 200
about,
million international, so it basically
got Men in
tied its
Black.
domestic.
yeah, like I am gonna be thinking about the Eternals for years, because I think that it's a movie that it's just, it may not, to Rob, to your point, be something that you're gonna like Winter Soldier, but man, oh man, like there are gonna be some people in some communities who like, this is the movie that is good, that inspired me to do XYZ, or allowed me to do something else with my life, and that's what these movies should be.
Yeah.
It's-
Imagine the
and-
young generation watching this.
yeah,
Like, that's
so
cool.
the younger generation who will just be acclimated and be like, oh, that's normal. Like that's what these movies are supposed to be, is to normalize different things. And if it's the first time in a superhero movie where two men kiss, like, so like, again, no one cares about this, but that's part of our culture now too. So I think that at the end of the day, Marvel, Disney, even though this movie may not make $1 billion, and even if it breaks even, they will continue to go at it, because if this is their prestige, like we're going to do stuff in this franchise that no one else does, it will still get them support of many actors and many people within different communities, because it's like, well, this is what we want, this is what we want to see. So I know people are like, well, it's probably not going to get a second one. I'd be surprised if it, you know, I'm more in the camp of like, I'm sure they're going to get another movie, because with the amount of applause that people heard about Harry Styles, and the fact that they're going to add, you know, now a few of the Eternals have gone and you know who they are, you can just build upon it. And with Angelina Jolie, just now that she doesn't have to be in the foreground, you could just be like, oh, her memories now are intact, she could just be a badass. Then let's see what happens. So okay, so as we wrap this up and go forth, I'm excited to see more Eternals. I'm excited to watch this movie again. I think most of us are in agreement that that's the case, but you know, there are many more Marvel movies coming out. We'll see what happens. I know people are doom and gloom, but I don't think any of this is going to affect the next Marvel films. I think they'll just continue going, because we saw Captain Marvel got bombed as well. And Rob, you did a very good eloquent soliloquy as well about people bombing it just because of what, like because of this DC Marvel thing and all the stuff that people just had to make a stand for no reason. So let's continue to see what happens in the future.
Can I ask you guys a quick question though? Marvel has made it clear that these movies are dropping on their video on demand service within 45 days of theatrical run. So knowing that, does that stop you, if you want to see this again, from jumping into the theater, spending another $30-$40 a seat in the theater? Or do you think you're just going to wait until it hits Disney Plus, potentially at the end of this year, maybe beginning of January? What do you guys?
I'll go back.
Yeah.
I think it's I saw it in IMAX Friday. It was great.
Yeah.
I would see it again in a heartbeat. I think there's and I think that the scenes, especially when you saw the Celestials, like the bigness when you saw Ursum.
Yeah.
And I liked how he had battle damage. Like it just shows he's weathered. It's like he's not like pristine.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh, there's little cracks here. He's been here.
Oh, he had lots of wrinkles, like B. Arthur from the Golden Girls. They weren't
things
like
going on. They
dare you.
They aged him up like Mona. They just had to age him up a bit. Like, we're gonna make you look older because you're the youngest Golden Girl. So make you look like the grandma. But right. I thought it was, I think that it was one of those things where scale and scope and color and whatnot. Like I would watch it again. With no problem. Again, the fact that we didn't even remember Venom again, like, I don't think I would watch that one ever again. There's not a scene in Venom 2.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I enjoyed it at the time. I don't
wiped
think
through our memory.
But it's definitely on top of Black Widow and Wonder Woman. I feel like it's not
100%. I like Wonder Woman for sure. There's many problems with that movie, and even
Wonder Woman's
Widow.
always at the bottom. I think it would be a tough feat to topple that at number one at the bottom.
But that's the funny thing, like the dialogue as well. Which Kevin like Chloe Zhao did too much. I'm like, the same time as Kevin Feige probably said, hey, I want you to do this, and we follow the Marvel method. Like, we need to lay the foundation of things. She just had to do the heaviest exposition of like galactic, like space stuff. It's not like, oh yeah, by the way, this is like a super soldier serum.
Yeah,
like,
I think she did a good job selling it.
Like compared to the
but I do see why it will lose people. Yeah,
compared to the ballerina program and like Black Widow, like that's simple. Like, oh, Black Widow, you're part of this program. We've seen many things about this before. Like, here it is, and it wasn't executed very well. Where I'm like, oh, okay, and this is like, oh, we have to talk more about space. So, yeah. John, are you gonna watch it again?
Yeah, I'll see it again just because of my scheduling. It's hard to fit in these really long movies. So this is like a 3-hour thing. I don't think I'm going to be able to fit this in a theater again. But I do look forward to seeing what's essentially a very Justice League like movie going down again. Like those action scenes definitely will be rewatching again. But yeah, just the length of the movie will prevent me from going to theaters again. But
yeah, Rob.
Yeah, so I saw No Time to Die twice in the theater, but that's no surprise. I'm a huge Bond fan. I saw Dune once. I would go back to see Dune in a heartbeat, and I want to go like sooner than later. I don't know if I would see the Eternals again, and it's not reflective of the fact that whether I like the movie. I just think that knowing that it's going to be popping on Disney Plus in the next 2 months, it doesn't. I feel like it kind of takes away some of that urgency to go back into a theater to see it again. I felt burned by the Black Widow spending $40 Canadian to own it when it came out on Disney Plus, at the end of September or beginning of October, right? So that's the one thing about these 45 days. Like, I'm excited to get these things that I can watch from home, but the flip side is that I don't know if it really behooves me to want to go spend more money to go see it in the theater or not, right? So I'm kind of two minds. Like, I definitely want to see Dune again. I'm going to go see Ghostbusters and Spider-Man. Maybe I'll throw, then that would be fourth. Seeing the Eternals again in the theaters would be my fourth.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. Maybe next week when Shang-Chi drops and you rewatch it, or most of us rewatch it, you might be like, oh man, I should have caught this one more time in the theater, because I didn't see it on a really nice screen. The screen that I saw it was like the blacks weren't like fully crisp.
Yeah.
So when I rewatch it, I might regret not catching it one more time.
Yeah, I could definitely say it was the sunny parts and that first action sequence were very bright and awesome. So I was, and again, without me gushing about I just like the teamwork stuff. It was what I wanted. It was Justice League.
Yeah, they basically had a Batman / Green Lantern. Yep. They had a Flash. Yeah. They had a Superman. They had a Professor X, but I guess he's not really Justice League. But
yeah, they kind of like the way that even
they basically had a Justice League. So I felt like at some points when I was watching the movie, I was like, oh, they're basically going, hey, DC, this is how you do it. But,
because I thought the Gilgamesh and Athena scene where the two of them were fighting that deviant and using their powers collectively together, like where he just kind of puts the glove on and starts punching people. I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, this is kind of the Avengers style, like showing you that they can work together. And, it doesn't take that much to show teamwork, but somehow movies forget that. So
also, I just want to give a big shout out to Selma Hayek, who signs up for a Marvel movie and is only in flashbacks because her character is found dead. Right, like now.
Her when Sprite uses her as a hologram thing, but
right, but she's dead. Like, you're probably not getting a future Marvel movie, right? Unless you're going to be in flashbacks. So like, all I'm saying is that, but my point is that you have an actress who, every actress, they have a bit of an ego. The fact that she's like, I just want to be part of this picture, this role, this story. I want to serve the story as opposed to serving my self-interest. That was great. So.
Do you think, as we quickly go, and I think they can bring it back easily because they're synthetic.
Sure.
Honestly, as we said before, Sam Wilson was correct. It's either wizards, androids,
or warlocks.
Or warlocks. Boom. He's right. It's androids, robots. Do you think that Icarus died, or did he just fly to the sun? Like
no, I think he went to tell Ashraf or whatever. I think I don't think he sacrificed himself. I mean, I think it's kind of funny that he flies into the sun. I mean, it's right. There's a couple times they dropped that whole Icarus flute, right? So that was kind of cool. But no, I think he's alive. Yeah, Richard Madden will return as Icarus for sure.
John?
Yeah, I was like, what, did he suicide himself or whatever? But
he'll come back as Sentry.
I assume whatever he did was not final for him. Yeah. So
because technically all these characters come back because their consciousness is in that receptacle. Yeah. And they're just sentient.
Yeah, they're storing the memories.
They just put a memory from another one there. So none of them can truly, except for their Earth experience won't be there. But technically, they're still, they can still be there. So a version of them, and even that thing about too the existential conversation of like, if your memories are gone, are you the same person? So I actually also like that too, with the whole scene where they're at where they're in Mexico and dealing with that, the whole thing too about the conquistadors. But so many heavy like themes. History and themes. Like it was a little too much at times because they kept on adding layers and layers of like, these are gods and these are things and Superman and Alfred and like all like there's so much to talk about in this movie where I could even go before. It's like, and Chloe Zhao also mentioned that Superman Zack Snyder was an influence on Richard Madden's portrayal of Icarus. So there's Chloe Zhao's like, hey Marvel, if you don't want me, I'm landing up the pipeline so I can do some DC movies. Where she's like, I love DC. I'm like, I guess you're just hedging your bets in case they don't want you anymore. So I can't make this prediction.
Bunch of DC references in the movie. That's pretty funny.
Well, I think to her point, these are the new gods now. These are Jack Kirby. These are the new
mythological
stories and legends. Like even when Sprite did the whole thing with Gilgamesh, I was like, oh, that was really cool. Or she's Gilgamesh this, and Gilgamesh is the first type of like hero as well. So as you talked about your boy Don Lee, John. So there we go. All right, so we clearly can go on and on, but it's been long enough about the Eternals. John, before we quickly go, and I know Rob mentioned before comic books. If you haven't read the Neil Gaiman run of the Eternals, it's a newer run that popped out.
That's the more definitive run. If you're into the old school, like you really like the old school art and designs, then you want to trek back and do the original stuff. But the Neil Gaiman seems to be the definitive run that everyone's asking for. And then they do have a new series out right now. I forgot what issues it's on, but you can check that out.
So
if you're into some more Eternals action, and then the action figures are on our shelves right now. So
if you want action figures, you could do it. The Eternals storyline, just for your reference, they're all living on Earth, but their memories are blank. They don't know they're Eternals. And something happens, and they all find each other one by one, reinsert their memories, and then adventure and chaos ensues. So that is the storyline of Neil Gaiman. And Neil Gaiman, of course, is a prolific writer, and I love all his stuff. So the Eternals is really well done too, and he does not shade from the weirdness that is the Eternals. So that is that. So I would recommend checking that run, or if you like the toys, buy the toys. They can all be found at Heroes World. John, where can they find you on the Desert or the Real and online?
So Heroes World Online is your key phrase to get you onto everything we pretty much do on social media. So the Instagram, the Facebook, the YouTube, the new Twitch channel, which we just reached affiliate. Thank you everybody for following us on there. So that's going to be exciting times. The links will be in the description for this YouTube for all those things, especially the audio. Show the audio some love if you're on iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher, whatever service. There is a new Facebook podcast service, which I'm trying to get us on there as well. So it will all hopefully be available there. Again, links in the bottom. So check us out there. If you are out and about in person, and if you're traveling to the Markham area, you can find us on 8601 Warden Avenue, right in the northeast corner of Warden and Highway 7. Lots of stuff in our plaza. Our store is fully packed. We're getting ready for Christmas. So if you need stuff, come get it now, because Christmas is going to be right on you in like a second. So you should definitely be searching now. And if you need special stuff, you should definitely have hit me up yesterday, because the shipping lines and orders and all that stuff is going to get really backed up when we get closer, and it's already starting to show now. So if you want something super special, hit me or Andre or whoever up on the ASAP, any of those points of contact that I mentioned before, we'll get those and get back to you on the ASAP. So yeah, hit us up, guys.
Yeah. So as always, thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, doing all those things. It really does help John and Andre get their message as well as content spread out more on the internet. Again, not everyone knows that the physical brick and mortar store exists, even though the internet exists. So it is helpful for them to gain some more knowledge.
To this day, people walk in, how long you been here? We're like 20 years, and they're like, what?
So yeah, that's why we do what we do, to help people recognize that the two of them and their establishment is real and been here for a long time, not in the shadows. So there we go. Rob, and again, if you can buy anything, small, big or small, everything's helpful. If you need to ship online, you can ship online. Rob, did you know that we're more of an autonomous collective? Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Who?
What?
I didn't vote for you. Who voted for you? A monarchy, a dictatorship? That's my pitch, by the way, for Black Knight, going to back in time to medieval King Arthur. Like, my pitch is throw him back in medieval times. It's a time jump movie, and Black Knight will deal with King Arthur and the Knights of the Round. It'd be great, and then throw in some Monty Python jokes in there with the Black Knight.
As long as Sir Patrick Stewart reprises his role from Excalibur movie, I'm all for it.
Or from
what's Martin Lawrence doing?
Yeah,
that's also true. That's
very
true.
good.
That's
Very good.
Martin, I think it was Jamal Skywalker coming into the court. Rob, where can we find you on the internets, and what's happening on Monday?
Oh man, so tomorrow on the Heroes World Sidekick Show. Do you guys remember? This feels like a very long year if you think about it, even though it's hard to believe Christmas is around the corner. Back in May of this year, we reviewed Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead.
Yes.
That hit on Netflix. Well, if you remember, the safecracker Matthias Schweighöfer, I don't know if this is how to pronounce his name, Geeter, he directed a sort of a prequel called
Did he direct
Army.
the movie?
Yes, he did.
Wow.
Called Army of Thieves, and that hit Netflix on the 28th of October. So I guess just last week. So John and I are going to be talking about that movie tomorrow on the Heroes World Sidekick Show, 8:15 Eastern, on your Facebook, your YouTubes, or your Twitch channels. So definitely go check it out. It is on Netflix. You can check it out. I've watched the first little bit last night, and I was like, impressed with what I have seen thus far. So it's a different tone than Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead thus far. So it's something you definitely want to check out, and join us as we talk about that tomorrow on the Heroes World YouTube.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be bringing up a whole bunch of Army of Dead discussion as well, too. Theories, time loops, all that kind of yada yada.
Have you watched the full movie already?
I have, yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I have something to look forward to for today, even though it's going to be nice, balmy 14 degrees outside.
Yeah, open the pool.
No.
No?
No, Uncle Robbie's got to pick up some leaves. So that's my job this afternoon.
These are homeowner problems. All right. So thank you so much for joining us and listening to our thoughts on the Eternals. Please go watch it. Give us your thoughts. Let us know in the comments whether you liked it or whether people were off base. I think we all, for one, agree that we liked it. So I'm interested to see what John's tag is going to be for this video. Eternals, good? Question mark.
Yeah, so like, is Eternals the worst?
Eternals,
is it as bad
eternally
as they say?
good or
Yeah,
inconveniently bad?
Like I think Rob, I apologize, I forgot. Just quick before we sign out. Is this movie bottom 5, top 5, or in the middle for you?
26 Marvel movies. I would put this towards in the top 10, but the latter half of that 10.
John?
Yeah, I think it goes towards the top for me for sure. I'd have to pinpoint, like, I think I can definitely put it in my top 10. I don't think it's gonna crack. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna crack my top 5. Like I said, these Marvel movies, I could take or leave some of them. You know what I mean? Like,
you haven't
Winter
seen all of
Soldier's
them, to be
definitely.
fair. So
Yeah. There's a handful that I've missed, and maybe some I don't know.
Are you gonna watch Doctor Strange before Doctor Strange 2? Are you gonna do this, John? Are we gonna force you to do it?
I guess if we'll have to add it to the Sidekick Show or something to force me to watch it, but there's no motivation for me to watch it right now, and that's just because I missed it in theaters. That's not a shot at the content or whatever. I think it's just the way I watch movies. You know, I used to buy the Blu-rays of everything after the fact, and a lot of them are unopened. Rob can attest. I think I sold him a still sealed Blu-ray. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, I love this. I bought it. But the theater experience was my go-to, and that was it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I definitely would put it in the top 5. I just kind of dug this formula a little bit more, even though I only gave it a 7.5. I think given some time, it'll probably go up a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's like the 10 to 15 range for me. Like that's
okay.
Probably it, but it's not the bottom by far, because as we just discussed before, like I have soft spots for a lot of these movies, but I think there are moments that can redeem them. But I also know that there are train wrecks, so that I haven't watched since. But I think I stand correct. I did see Black Widow twice. So for the review,
good on you.
So
good on you.
I did see it twice. So I retract my statement of never see it again. But I will for sure not watch Venom 2 ever again. That's
one day. Maybe there's a director's or an uncut.
Nope.
Maybe there's an uncut version.
Not gonna happen.
Not gonna. I think I'm done. I think I'm out. So we're gonna
just like China. Venom 2 is banned in my house.
No, Venom 2 wasn't banned though.
Well, it should have been.
So, yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks for watching.
What's
Thanks
next
for listening.
then? Is Morbius next? Is Mobius next? Is that what we got to do next?
No, Spider-Man.
Oh, that's January, bro.
Spider-Man, bro.
Right.
Spider-Man.
You have Matrix and Spider-Man are dropping in December.
All right, so we're gonna close out the year with Spider-Man and superhero movies, and we'll see if we forget Venom again when we go to our list.
The fact that they haven't even dropped another trailer yet, I don't even know what to say, because I'm getting ready.
They shouldn't drop it.
I'm getting ready for them to pull the shoe on us and be like, no, you know what? It's gonna come out in 2022. So
oh yeah, that could happen too. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Charlie Brown.
So we'll see what happens. But fingers are crossed. Apparently another trailer is dropping out anytime now, within I think sometime between the build up of the trailer. So I think next week the trailer could drop on the 15th to 19th. So more stuff will drop then to build up for this movie, because I think they learned their lessons. Like, we're gonna do it right before the movie to build up the hype. So we'll see. Anyways,
all right.
Thank you for. Bye everyone.
Bye everyone.
Yeah, thank you for getting up early, guys.
Thanks.